Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am Erica Harubi. I'm thrilled and excited to announce our first webinar of the 2022-2023 year. I feel like, how am I saying that? It's like the end of October already. I don't know where time has gone, but we've been doing a lot of work. We've been doing a lot of planning, a lot of outreach, a lot of communication, and we're incredibly excited to kick off the webinar part of our programming with two phenomenal people that I have had the pleasure of working closely with the last couple of years. Nina Walden from Chai Mitzvah. I'm sure the two of you are going to introduce yourselves a little bit too. And Jennifer Saber from many things, but in this capacity from Shutaf Inclusion Programs. And Jennifer is also one of our new board members. So we're thrilled that she's here in a few different capacities. And I'm going to go ahead and stop talking. I'm going to turn the floor over to Nina and Jennifer and spend our time together talking about inclusion and diversity through the lens of Jewish texts and some curriculum that you all have access to.
Thank you so much. We're really excited to be here sharing our new Shutaf Chai Mitzvah Inclusion Programs curriculum with you. I am going to share it so you can see how it looks. Hold on. There we go. And the first thing I wanted to know is, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Chai Mitzvah or with Shutaf, or if this has been out for a very short time, but if anyone is familiar with it, just let us know starting now. And we'd love to have your thoughts and your reactions as we go through it. So I'm Nina Walden. I'm the managing director of Chai Mitzvah. I'm going to share a little of this with you, and Jen's going to share it with you. We worked on it together, and we're really excited about it. So I'll tell you really quickly, Chai Mitzvah was created as a way to engage adults and teens and families in a Jewish journey throughout their lives. We combine text to spark discussion and what we call the power of passion, or POP. So participants can make a positive difference in their lives and in their communities by doing social action. Chai Mitzvah is primarily funded by donors, so we're able to offer our materials very, very, very reasonably. And Chai Mitzvah also offers stipends to schools for piloting our materials, and to students for summer Israel travel. And if you want to know more about this, we can talk about it more after we explore this great new material that we've created with Jen from Shutaf.
So I'm Jen Saber, and I should let you know that I was a user of the Chai Mitzvah curriculum when I was an education director. So I fully encourage you to explore that with Nina. So today I'm here wearing my Shutaf Inclusion Programs hat. The formal name of the organization is called Shutaf Inclusion Programs in Jerusalem. I am the Inclusion Education Coordinator in North America from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Also my other hat worth mentioning is I work for the Milwaukee Jewish Federation. I'm the Teen Philanthropy Coordinator, as well as the Kasher Inclusion Specialist, supporting all the different synagogue schools to make sure they're meeting the needs of all their kids. Shutaf runs in Israel, in Jerusalem, runs year-round programming for children, teens, and young adults with and without special needs. And then we also have, what you're looking at now is our inclusion guide, which are training materials for staff and also madrachim and teens in formal and informal settings. Meaning camp and synagogues and youth group, and I'll say Teen Philanthropy, since I see Danielle's on the call. And so when I've used these, I'm a user. Luckily, I wear these two hats, so I actually get to write the stuff and then have my own learning lab in Milwaukee. So again, they are completely free. We encourage you to use them, and Shutaf also leads workshops and does coaching on the topic. So. All right. So This is our new, and we're very excited to bring you our new curriculum. It is 3 units called Kahila, Caring and Community. And I'm really excited to share this. Nina and I are really excited to share this collaborative project with you. It has the traditional text-based experiential style of Chai Mitzvah, but it's through an inclusion and disability awareness lens that Shutaf brings and promotes. There are 3 units, one of which we will be going over today. They can be used what's great about it is they can be used together, or they can be used in a self-contained sort of way. And you can mix and match the activities based on your time, your setting, your students, and your goals. And I'm a proud user of the first unit. I tried out the unit actually in my own synagogue with I happen to have a child, and I have a child in high school. So I demoed the lesson and thought it went really well, got a lot of good feedback. I've also used it on Zoom. If you needed to do it on Zoom, it's easily adaptable, which is an item to note. And what's great about this is it comes with a source book and a leader's guide, and all the links are embedded right in the materials. So it's very easy to use.
Okay, so we're going to start by looking at this unit, and there's not enough time to do everything, but we're going to do some fun activities. And I'm going to just start off by showing you our leader's guide. The themes are the first thing you'll see. So the themes we're going to talk about in this unit: your life can be compared to a journey. Throughout your life, your travels will include rites of passage that help you to learn and grow. We come out of these in some way permanently changed and transformed. So marking our lives with life cycle events is one way Judaism works to bring order to chaotic times of change and transition in our lives. And one thing we point out in this also is it can be a good transition and it'll still feel chaotic and stressful. That's something that teenagers especially need to learn to deal with. Being in the family of someone with a disability can be compared to the experience of changed travel plans, or having your life follow a course you didn't plan and didn't want to take. That doesn't make it bad, just different from what you expected. And there are parts of our lives that we can control, another very important lesson, and other parts where we can only control how we react to them. The last theme that we cover in this unit is Jewish text and tradition addresses the issues of disability and inclusion, which kind of is what these other themes are leading up to. Disability and inclusion, advising us to show respect through our words and actions. So we're going to do some of the activities and texts in this unit, but because of time, we can't do them all. So we'll only look at some of the other ones. And we're going to start where the students are by focusing on their own personal life journeys through a Jewish lens and a secular one, with activities about rites of passage. So remember yourself when you were a teenager. We're asking kids to share, but before we do, depending on your group, you might want to start by creating a safe space, allowing the students to engage in brave speech. At Chai Mitzvah, we do a lot of this sharing. And when people are comfortable, you'd be amazed at what they share and how deep the conversation goes. So you're good educators. I'm sure you can do this in your classroom. And what this activity is, we start by hanging poster boards, or for remote, like we are today, we use a Jamboard with different age spans written on them. As you can see, 0 to 7, 8 to 11, and 12 plus. And we're going to take ourselves back into that age and think about our lives as Americans and as Jews, and to record responses to the following question on the boards. What are transformational experiences that you encountered during these age spans? So we're going to include secular ones, like going to sleepaway camp for the first time, and Jewish rites of passage that the students might have personally experienced, like starting religious school, or a wedding, or a bar bat mitzvah, obviously. And the group might want to compare these experiences, and the conversation that comes later is tied to this activity. So we're going to try this together. I'm going to open the Jamboard. I'm going to put it where you can see it. Can everybody see it? Oops. Are you guys able to see this? Good, good, good. Okay, So what are some transformational experiences that you've encountered during these age spans? And I'm going to put in the chat box the link to the Jamboard. Well done. So that everybody can get on it. There you go. Okay. Great. Let's take a couple of minutes.
Is everybody familiar with how to use the Jamboard? I can do a quickie intro. So if you look on the far left side, there's a vertical strip of symbols. And there's a few options. One is there's a pen. So if you click on the pen, you can write your answer. 1, 2, 3, 4 down, it looks like a little post-it sticky note. If you click on that, just like that. If you click on that, you can write what you want, hit enter, and it appears. And then the other one is at the second from the bottom, there's a T, and you can click on that, and you can actually go and type in what you want in the text box.
So interesting to see what's coming up, because a lot of them are life experiences that we can share. You know what I mean? It's very interesting to see what they are and how we can relate to each other and to these experiences. It's really good. It's going to be really helpful as we go forth in this. This is awesome. If we just take a look at what people are writing, and we might even be inspiring each other. You know, when you see what someone else says, it kind of reminds you of something. And it's great to see this too. And when you do it with your students also, they're going to be able to feed off each other and to think about how these transitions relate to them and to each other's. This is great. You guys are doing great sharing. Okay. Do we feel like we're ready to see how this relates to the materials? Fantastic. I'm going to just minimize this for a minute. We will be back. And we're going to go to the texts that relate to it before we bring it up again. So we have here an introduction, which there'll always be. We're all on a journey from one stage of life to the next. Throughout your passage, you'll have experiences that help you learn and grow in wisdom and understanding. These are rites of passage. Sometimes unexpected things happen along our journey, making rites of passage helpful to us with these challenges. Would anybody like to read the first text? It's just one line. Starts with growing old. I can see everyone, but I don't see a volunteer.
Growing old, man's sight worsens, but this allows him to see more. Which is ironic because it's kind of blurry for me on my screen.
Sorry. Thank you. And who would like to read the next one? This is one line also.
I'll read.
Thank you.
Begin with the end in mind.
Perfect. Then we have one more text from Mayim Bialik. Who would like to read that? Okay, I will read it. I happen to be a person of faith. And what I have found, I have found that my tradition teaches that there is not an amount of money in the world that makes you not want more. There's not an amount of possessions in the world that makes you feel done consuming. And at the end of the day, when you're buried, your gravestone will not tell you any of these things. We live in a hyphen. We live in the hyphen between the year that we were born and the year we died. I once heard a rabbi say, "What will you do with your hyphen?" And that's what we're going to think about. You'll also find in our Leader's Guide that the entire podcast where Mayim Bialik talks about this is included along with guided conversation questions. It's pretty long, so we can't do it today, but it's very interesting. And I think you'd find it if you have the time. It's really great. So we have a few conversation questions. I'm going to tell you what 2 of them are, and then we'll focus on the 3rd one because of time. So what you want to talk about with your kids, name moments that marked your transition from one stage of life to the next. And they'll be ready to do this because we just did it on the Jamboard. Which ones most increased your understanding of the world around you? And going back to those, we can talk about that because each of these things that we saw you put there definitely increased your understanding of the world around you and changed the way you thought about things. But the one we're going to focus on most is the 3rd question here. What are the moments of change and transition in the personal hyphen of your life that have felt out of your control? And how did you bring control to your life? So I'm going to copy that and put it in the chat box. And then we're going to play Mad Hatter. Jen, would you like to explain Mad Hatter? Because you're good at that.
Oh, sure. So we're going to ask everybody to write their answer to that question in the chat box, but don't hit enter. And Nina is going to count to 3, 1, 2, 3. And when she gets to 3, we're all going to hit enter at the same time, and all the answers will come flooding at once. It's kind of cool to see.
Yes, but I'll give you like a minute or 2 to, to think about the moments of change and transition that have felt out of your control. There might be more than one, but just pick the best one.
And pause on hitting enter.
Yes, do not hit enter until you hear enter. It's so funny. I was talking in this webinar, this Rosh Chodesh webinar about silence and how we always need to fill our silence. And I'm thinking how in a game show, while we're letting people write stuff in, how they always played that music. Do, 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 do. Right? Okay. 1, 2, 3, enter. Wow, this is great. So these are great. These are great answers. Yeah. And so the first half of the question, yes, what are the moments of change and transition that have felt out of your control? And maybe we're going to learn a little bit more about bringing control to your life. Divorce, the oppressive weight of a graduate program that was not right for me. That's really hard. Moving from a small, not that divorce is easy, that's bad too. Moving from a small middle school to a large high school. Yeah, my sister did that. And she came in 9th grade because where we were moving, they had junior high. So, and we were moving from New York. She was going from a school where she was the oldest to a school where everybody had become friends and they were the oldest. So that was, it can be very rough at that age. Raising children, yeah, that's difficult. COVID, moving. Yeah, these are all excellent. And we're going to focus a little bit on how we can bring order to our life. And we'll also relate this to disability and inclusion. So here we go.
So I wanted to point out that we're looking at text, and frequently throughout the curriculum, we have linked Safaria to the text. So if your students want to do more in-depth study, or you would like some more background information, those are embedded right in there to be user-friendly and to be easy. So let's see. So just, we're going to go through this. Does someone want to read the text there? Turning traps and branches. And this is going to be the activity that I'm going to show you next is based on this particular text.
Jen, it might be challenging to get volunteers because the text is hard to read on the screen.
Got it.
So that might be some of the issue here.
Yeah.
That's, you know what, I'm reading it off my hard
Yeah.
copy, so I get it. Totally the issue, thank you. So
Okay.
I'll read it because I happen to have my glasses in a hard copy. So this next activity is based on, oh, just to demonstrate, you have your source book. Oh, it's not pretty color because I printed it off my printer, but you have your source book and then you have your leader's guide, and then the leader's guide has some additional activities in it. So we're going to be reading the text from the source book here in front of you, or I will be, and then the activity work I'm going to explain is in the leader's guide to kind of to further explore the text in an experiential sort of way. So the text is: the straightest way by which we should go up. There is no road without turnings. There is no road without traps. There is no road without branchings. So the activity for the kid, for the teens, is called Turnings, Traps, and Branches. And the materials that you need are a very long piece of yarn, very long. We put 6 feet, but just kind of the length of the room. And at least 5 shorter pieces, about 6 inches long. 5 or so slips of paper with the rites, either with the rites of passages that the kids just did on, you know, of the activity we just did. And also an optional big cup or bucket or container to store the pieces of paper of the rites of passage. So the first step is to have the kids either write, oh, here's the activity for you. Write the rites of passage out, or use the ones that you did from the previous activity. And then you can put those in that cup that we just talked about. And then you have 2 students at each end of the room holding that long piece of string out in a straight line. And then what you do is you have kids pick the rites of passages and read them. And think about, is it a turning, a trap, or a branch? And you can see this, what I'm about to describe in this picture. So for turning, they read the rite of passage, and if it's a turning point, if it's a turning point, they pull the yarn and hold it. So you see some of the individuals in this picture doing it. For a trap, you twist the string, and this gives you an opportunity to discuss with the teens what they have to do, or what you could do to get back on track. And once you've decided that, you can untwist it. And for a branch, you take one of those shorter pieces of yarn and you tie it to the longer one. And then the next student who goes gets to choose if they want to add to the branch or add to that long piece of string. So this is Nina led this activity at a conference she was at. So this is a demo of that particular activity. Can we see this activity? Can you tell me or write in the chat box what you notice about this photo or this activity?
Looks like some of the people are kind of clumping together in one area, and there are some people who are maybe outliers that don't connect or connect in different other ways.
So part of the activity is that the physical space, you know, we're noticing the physical space between the way the physical space in which the participants are placing themselves. And someone in the chat wrote, the string goes in many directions. Absolutely. And I'm opening the chat box. I like the idea of connection for sure. And this one we also did on Zoom, or with a Jamboard. This one actually, you don't have to physically stand there and do it with the string. You can draw a line and then have the kids interact with the Jamboard to make a bump, make a twist, make a branch. So and then erase it. You know, you can erase on a Jamboard. So this one is easy to do. We try to make all the activities easy to do in this day and age on Zoom, you know, virtually or in person.
Right. You can see people here are all wearing masks. This was very early when people got to go out again.
Yes.
Yes. So it's a great activity. And then we're going to look at the trajectory of our own lives. And we'll think about where we're going. We're just going to start out by looking at Tfilat HaDerech. which we say when we're about to depart on a journey. And as you know, the prayer asks God to keep us safe, protect us from dangers we might encounter along the way, and help us to return in peace. And the question I ask the kids is, and I'm asking you to think about it, when have you felt that you needed a prayer or encouragement or words of wisdom before leaving or arriving somewhere? And we're not going to read it now because A, it's hard to see when they're this small, and B, I think we're probably all pretty familiar with it. And also because of time. But one of the other things I'm going to go to is there's an activity that goes to this, and that's marking our journey. So one nice activity to do around this text is to create a new ritual of your own, a class ritual to mark a transition, and explain to the students that rituals around rites of passage are what help us to transition. To mark the beginning of the school year is one that we can think of. So that's one I think we'll do here together. We just need suggestions. You can unmute and just answer. Okay, so we're marking the ritual of starting the school year. Okay, where and when are we going to hold this ritual? Is there a significant time or a certain location where you would do this ritual?
End of summer. Just
Beautiful.
noticing that summer is ending and it's time to get excited about school.
Excellent. Okay. Now, what is the role of community? Who would you like to be present at this ritual that you're planning at the end of the summer about going back to school? Imagine you're a teenager and you're thinking about going back to school, and you're going to plan a ritual about going back to school.
You want your friends there. You don't really want the other classmates who aren't your friends, but they need to be there. The whole community, all of the school, the kids, the teachers need to be there.
That is excellent. I love these suggestions. And then we can even kind of steer it a little bit towards Jewish, but not necessarily. Will you use any ritual objects? And if so, which ones, and how will you use them? Kids might take something that they're familiar with from their Jewish tradition and maybe use it in a slightly new way to mark this new transition. Or we can even talk about the old tradition of having something sweet when you start school. So that might be some kind of a symbol that you might include. Then the last question you want to discuss is, what kind of promises will you make? What will you think about going forward? You're having this this ritual, and you kind of can end it with a commitment. Does anybody have a suggestion of what they would do? So I'm going to borrow from something I just did. I was trying to explain to my very, very young grandchildren what Rosh Hashanah is and what Yom Kippur is. And I said, you think about how you're going to be in the next year. And being 2.5 and 4, they said they were going to be super good guys. And they decided to wear super good guy capes to signify that. So you can make some kind of a promise and go forward it in the new year. And there's also a template on the next page where students can create a roadmap. I should have done this before. That will help them visualize their journey. And then there's another activity also, which is, here's a roadmap. And at the bottom, you can see that there are links to different songs. And this is fun because they can listen to the songs. And then we ask them to tell which resonates most with them and to write an additional verse to the song. And they can share it if they feel comfortable sharing it. And that's challenging to write like something, visualizing their life journeys and expressing it in a different way.
So the next part moves us into a different set of activities. And it's asking the students to think about those times, like where are you and where you're planning to go. And the fact that sometimes our travel plans or our life journey doesn't exactly turn out as expected. We might be delayed, again, thinking of kind of comparing it to a travel plan and traveling. We might be delayed due to weather or a detour because of construction. And having the students think about, like, how does this affect your journey? And the next text, which I'm going to read, is called Welcome to Holland by Emily Pearl Kingsley. And it's written by a parent of a child with a disability, and it compares it to the experience of changed travel plans in her personal experience. So it's little, so I'll keep reading this. So here, let me have this on. I am often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try to help people who have not shared that unique experience to understand it, to imagine how it would feel. It's like this. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks and make your wonderful plans, the Colosseum, the Michelangelo David, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all very, very exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands and the stewardess comes in and says, "Welcome to Holland." Holland, you say, what do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. It's supposed to be Italy. All my life I've dreamed of going to Italy, but there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland and there you must stay. The important thing is that they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy place full of pestilence, famine, and disease. It's just a different place. So you must go out and buy new guidebooks. You must learn a whole new language, and you will meet a whole new group of people you would never have met. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy than Italy. But after you've been there for a while and you catch your breath, you look around and you begin to notice that Holland has windmills and Holland has tulips. Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy, and they're all bragging about what a wonderful time they had there. And for the rest of your life, you will say, yes, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned. And the pain of that will never, ever, ever, ever go away, because the loss of that dream is a very, very significant loss. But if you spend your life mourning the fact that you didn't get to Italy, you may never be free to enjoy the very special and the very lovely things about Holland. I like that one.
Me too. It's one of my absolute favorites.
Yes, it's very powerful. There's some discussion questions in the leader's guide to talk to the kids and unpack reading that story about how to navigate those parts of your life that you didn't choose. Good ones, challenging ones, the kids, that certainly becomes a rich discussion for them. So, and also to point out in the discussion guide, yes, a great way for people to understand the new journey, absolutely. So also in the discussion guide, there is some going back to the Mayim Bialik podcast, or the piece of text that we read a few minutes ago. There are some discussion questions next to process her quote also about the hyphen. What are you going to do with your hyphen? So, all right. So the next piece is Shutaf has a series of videos, training videos, trigger videos, and this is one of them. And this talks about what it's like. Have you ever experienced a change in plan? Same thing. Where do you plan to go? And again, this is processing Holland. And also, this is the story of one of our co-founders, Miriam Avraham, and what it was like to receive the diagnosis for her daughter who has a disability, and how her family reacted to it. And how her and her husband told her two sons.
Right. So the thing that's great about this digital book also is you can click right on it and get the video. But right now I'm going to show it to you from my computer. Tell me if you see it now, correct? Yeah, good, great.
אני זוכרת שקיבלנו את הבשורה בדרך לא דרך, והיינו צריכים לספר לילדים, והחלטנו לנסוע לבריכה, אחרי שסיפרנו להם, וככה להירגע, וגם לתת לה, שהיא הייתה תינוקת, לתת לה גם יום כיף. ואני זוכרת שבחניה, שחנינו את הרכב, ויצאנו, ואתה פרצת בבכי. אתה זוכר את זה?
אני זוכר היטב, כי אני חושב שבאותו יום השמיים נפלו עליי.
כשאתה חושב על זה, מה היית אומר לי אז, באותו מקום, באוטו, שככה אנחנו יושבים ושבורים, כן.
קודם כל היא ילדה יפה. מקסימה, היא תגיע להישגים. זאת ילדה שיהיה תענוג לגדל אותה. ועם כל הקשיים, עם כל האתגרים שיש, אני חושב שאנחנו נצליח. אנחנו נעמוד בכל המשימות.
כן, אני
מסכימה.
Yeah, so that's Miriam, one of our two co-founders, speaking with her husband and her experience. So again, you know, it's a great trigger for discussion for the students. So the next part we're going to talk about is the unit transitions into use of words and language. And I should point out one really cool thing is that there are 3 units, but within the 3 units, there's a lot of different activities. So we talked about at the beginning, like you can pick and choose what you want. You also can, it's not just like 3 units over 3 sessions. You really can expand and stretch this out. I know when I said I had demoed a lesson for my daughter's class, I actually only demoed 2 pages, the whole, actually the one we're talking about now. I did pages 8 and 9 in this one unit for my daughter's class. So yeah, so this next part talks about where our words can take us. This is the page here. The words we use can take us in one direction or another. What language do we use to describe people different from ourselves? Can negative language push us off the path? Can positive language make the world a better place and more inclusive place? And then what's so interesting to unpack is the next piece of text, which I'll read because it's a little bit small, but it's the blessing for seeing someone who looks different than you. So there's lots of translations of this. So we chose the one that was, blessed are you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who makes creatures different. So, and if you go into Safari, you'll see different versions of this blessing to unpack with your students.
Yeah. So we've basically started out with the kids focusing on their own lives, and now we've expanded it so they can see that not only do their own lives not always within their control, but these people with disabilities that are also part of their world, well, their parents weren't expecting it, or they're experiencing things also. So Jen, do your great activity.
Oh, okay. I'm also noting the time.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Just do the Apple one.
Yeah.
Okay.
No bananas.
All right. So what I need everybody to do is to pretend you are a 14-year-old. We're going to all get into the role and role play this next activity. All right. So is everybody ready? You put on your 14-year-old hat. So I'm going to ask you to participate, but also come to it as if you're coming to it as a 14-year-old. So hi, I'm Jennifer, and I work in the produce section of your local grocery store. Here's my apple, right? This is an apple right from my grocery store that I took from my own produce section. Can someone tell me a word to describe this apple? Feel free to unmute and share. What's a word to describe this apple?
Red.
Red. Oh, thank you. Was that Avi?
Yes.
Avi, thank you for sharing. But I want to let you know that we can't use that word anymore. We cannot use the word red. Can you think of another word, a synonym to substitute, since none of us are allowed to use the word red any longer?
Maybe colorful.
Colorful. Thank you. Thank you, Avi. Anybody else? Can you
It's
share a word that
shiny.
just shiny? Oh, who said that? Is that Pauline?
Yeah.
Pauline,
Yeah.
thank you, Pauline, for sharing shiny. But unfortunately, Pauline, we can't use the word shiny anymore either to describe my apple. Can anyone think of another word to instead of shiny?
Can you use glossy?
Glossy. Excellent. Yes, we can use glossy from now until forever, but we are no longer allowed to use shiny. Thank you. So how does it make you feel? How does it make everybody feel here when you're told that you can't use a certain word in here?
Could make you feel bad, but it could also make you get creative. I don't know, I think back to my older son's third grade teacher when she had a poster on the wall of dead words that they couldn't use in their writing. Like
Oh, I love
fed
that.
and other really common words. So it gets me thinking like that.
So you're thinking it feels creative, but it could also make you feel bad. So I like that example.
Depends on how, and yeah, it depends on how you are in the moment. If you're in a good place, it's going to make you get creative. And if you're not in a really good place at that time, then you're going to feel stupid or dumb or, really little, or like, oh, I can't give any more answers because my answer was wrong.
Absolutely. It depends kind of where in your headspace you are. Does it make you feel in a positive way or a negative way? Absolutely. Thank you. So this activity, we do with the kids, and then there's also some discussion questions to get them to kind of unpack the activity. Can you use inclusive language but still exclude people? How does positive language make the world a more inclusive place? Please explain. How does negative language make the world a less inclusive space?
Those are great questions to discuss, and they really get brought up by this activity. And then we have some things about our attitudes.
Oh, wait, there's a question in the box. Sorry.
Oh yeah, here we go. Wait, yeah. Okay, so here's some more text to talk about our attitudes. This is a little bigger. Does anybody want to try to read it? Okay, then I will.
Oh, wait, can I pause a second to address the question in the box?
Oh, I didn't see the question in the box. Sorry. Yeah.
So I wonder why we're being asked not to use a particular word. In this exercise, you didn't give us any reason, but I think teens are very open to conversations about the impact of specific words. Yes, we didn't get into the since we're skipping around in the curriculum a bit, we didn't get to the point of there's certain words that you can't use. The director of, hold on, I'm pulling it up. So on that page with Akiva on this page.
This one.
Okay. This activity goes with that page. So it talks about, choosing your words, and it talks about, again, like a blessing when you see someone different, what does that look like? How does it make you feel? It talks about negative language and positive language. In here are 2 blog articles that Beth Steinberg, the other co-director and co-founder of Shutaf, wrote. That's her son. That's Akiva. And there's two blogs. One is called More About Positive Language, and the other one is called What Tard Are You Anyway? And it's interesting. You make a really good point. I did this activity with my daughter's class, and we got into a really interesting discussion, because this is a hot topic now about labels and what you call people and what you can use and what you can't use. And they really got into it. So I'm glad you brought up that point. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes. Yeah, that's perfect. When we're skipping so quickly, yeah, it's very important to see where it goes from. And that actually what we just covered brings us up to these texts, which talk about our attitudes. We started by saying what we can and can't say ourselves, and now we're looking at our attitudes through Jewish text. So one of them is Ben Azai taught, despise no one and call nothing useless, for there's no person who does not have his hour, and no thing that does not have its place. And then the next text, which I find really interesting, it's easy to pass judgment on the laws in the Torah and to claim that we are morally superior to it. But we can only do that if we first face up to our own practices. And so let me ask you these questions. If Yitzchak Avinu, Father Isaac, who became legally blind in his old age, were to come into our synagogue and want to daven with us, would we have large print prayer book available for him? If Yaakov Avinu, Father Jacob, who was injured in an encounter with a mysterious stranger and limped for the rest of his life as a result, were to come into our synagogue and want an aliyah, would he be able to get up to the bima there? And if not, if we don't have a ramp that makes the bima accessible to the people with disabilities, what would we say to him? If Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher, who had a speech defect, were to come into our shul and want to read from the Torah that he gave us, could we handle it without becoming embarrassed if he were to stutter? So this talks a bit about our attitude towards people with differences. And it's interesting because it's actually true that we live such a long time these days. In the United States, with a life expectancy of well over 70 years of age, individuals will spend about 8 years of their life, or 11% of their lifespan, living with disabilities. How many people with disabilities do you think there are? And there is a link here to find out what that answer is. Jen.
So the next two games, and I'm just going to, since we want to get to that last slide, I'm just going to explain them, if that's okay, Nina. So the next two games and activities that are offered in the Leader's Guide as well as the source book are activities to get the teens thinking about labels and stigmas and assumptions, and how to get past all those things. There's a card. So that's one is called labels. If you can see right in the middle, labels, categories, and diagnosis. One game, two variations, and there it is.
Yep.
And again, it's the link's embedded, so I have to just click on it. And it's the kids take on different roles, and then they play them out, think about the assumptions, think about the stigmas. And then there's a second one where we talk about, we use bagels. We use 3 different kinds of bagels, plain, gluten-free, and everything, and have the kids go through and think about, like, what sort of person would order a plain bagel? What sort of person would order an everything bagel? What sort of person would order a gluten-free bagel? And again, you kind of unpack that and talk about like assumptions, and how do we get past assumptions and labels?
Do you want
and
to?
You can do that on a Jamboard. I've done that on the Jamboard. So there it is.
There.
Ta-da.
Yes. I don't know if we have time for it today, but I actually played it with my friends today, and I'm a gluten-free person, and there was some interesting, do we have time for it, or do you want to just go?
Well, we have 5 minutes, so maybe do the last one. So the last slide. But I also should say, I did this with my daughter's class, and it was around perm time. So I did chocolate hamantashen, prune hamantashen, and a fruit like strawberry hamantashen. So kind of got the same effect.
Right. Very true. All right. Well, we'll go to the last last slide here because we are towards the end. And that is to think about what we've just looked at, from looking at your life to learning about loss of control to how rites of passage help with this, to then transitioning into seeing the disabilities through new eyes. How do you think this activity or these activities or this curriculum could work for you? And here's a Jamboard, and now you're all pros in using a Jamboard. So we're encouraging you to write what you think, how it could work for you, how you would imagine using the materials in your setting. Plus, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat box. And if you'd like a sample of the materials, we would be happy to send you their digital books. Just put your email in the chat box and we'll send you both the student's source book and a leader's guide for one of the 3 units.
And if you want to have a further conversation with Nina about Chai Mitzvah, their other curricula, feel free to make note of that in the chat box. And if you would like to have a further conversation with myself about Shutaf inclusion programs, Madrochim training, staff training, our materials, I'm happy to have that conversation with you too. We're both putting our emails in the chat box.
Yeah.
Or put your own email in the chat box.
That's even better, because if you put your own email in, you'll get a free sample of the materials,
That's
which, by the way, only cost $18 anyway. And I'm going to say that each of the source books is good for probably 3 sessions. And then if you add the activities in the leader's guide, this is a lot of material. Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say is that I love how you can sort of pick and choose different activities around different conversations. So I almost see the ability for professionals to use it as it comes, formally in the curriculum, but also to look at it and as issues are coming up, especially with a lot of the language stuff, that they can actually dip into this curriculum and simply focus on some of those areas. So I think it's got a lot of really interesting applicability, both in a more formal Jewish educational setting like a Hebrew High program, and also I can easily see this in leadership programs, in youth group activities, in lots of different kinds of settings as well. So I love that. And Danielle asked a question, I think, in the chat.
Yeah, she asked about how many minutes or hours are in each session. And that's an excellent question. The thing about all the Chai Mitzvah materials, and this is included, you can use what works for your group. There's a lot of material there between, especially if you guys get samples, you'll see between the leader's guide and the source book itself, there's videos, there's games, there's music. There are experiential activities. So you can make it fill, I don't know, Jim, what you say, two pages was for the class you taught like an hour, right?
Like I made page 8 and 9 of this booklet last for an hour and a half or so. So yeah, so that's what's great about it. You could like pick and choose depending on what you're doing. And, like Erica said, it could be you could stretch it over like a Shabbaton for a youth group. You could use it for a leadership training with youth group. You could use it in a Hebrew high school program. You could use this for Jewish JTEEN, Jewish Disabilities Awareness and Inclusion Month. That's another place you could use it. I'm available, Nina's available to help you talk through, I have an hour, I have 2 hours, I have a 10-week klug. My youth group wants to use this over a weekend. So, we're here to help you think about how to use this best. Or you could call and say, I'm thinking about this, which piece of these 3 units would fit. So
that's the answer.
thank you, Pauline. I can already see how pieces of this fit into my existing curriculum, and I can see how this can be used with our faculty for teacher training to help them when working with Madrochim. Absolutely. Thank you.
All
and
right.
I use a lot of this in my Madrochim training. So, sorry.
And I'm sure we can access this also in the National Madrichin program that we're running, Jen. I'm sure we'll be using that as part of that March session as well. Well, I want to thank everybody for participating today. Thank you all so much for looking out, paying attention to the programming that JTEEN is putting out into the world. And I hope that you were able to see that there are incredible professionals as part of our collegial community. And there are really wonderful resources that you may or may not already know about. And just, we were here today talking about this curriculum and this piece, but as you saw at the very beginning, there are lots of other learning programs, learning opportunities in both of these organizations. So definitely reach out, look on the web, and seek out more information. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
You.
And thank you everybody for being here.